In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to work in the round. So will give you the basis for making hats or bags or anything where you need a circle to start off with. So instead of working over and back in straight rows, we're going to be working from the center out. The basis of the circle is we're going to start with 12 trebles, and we're going to increase by 12 trebles on each row as we make the circle bigger. So I'm going to start with my slip knot. I have that ready to go, and we're going to make 4 chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and now we want to make a circle out of these 4 chain to work into. So I'm going to bring my hook back down into the first chain that I made and do a slip stitch into this chain. So pick up the loop, pull the yarn through and straight through the loop on the hook, and it creates this little circle that we're going to be working into. Okay, this is where our stitches are going to be made into this circle here. Okay, so we're not going to be working into any of these stitches all the way around. We're going to go straight into the circle. So keep your slip knot nice and tight so you don't mistake it for the space to work into. Now, so we're going to do 3 chain to count as your first treble. I'm going to be working in trebles the whole way through this. There's not going to be any other stitch, just trebles. Okay, and we want to do our first treble into the circle. So yarn over, your hook goes into the center of the circle, and we do our treble as normal. Just going to work the tail into the back of this as I go, and that'll keep it nice and neat. So can you see the circle there? Okay, so yarn over, hook into the circle, you're not picking up any stitches, and do your treble. Now you want to work 11 trebles into the circle. So you will have 12 altogether, including the 3 chain that you started with. You can see the circle forming nicely there, and as you work, the hole becomes a little bit easier to see. It's been pulled out a little bit better. So let's count now, and you're always going to include the 3 chain that you did at the beginning as your first treble. Now, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We need 2 more. One and 2. Okay, so I'm just going to pull my tail to kind of close that circle a little bit. Okay, so now we have to close the gap, and this step will be the same on every round. When you're finished doing your trebles, you need to close the gap. So we're going to do a slip stitch into the top of the 3 chain that you did at the beginning of the row. So 1, 2, 3 into the top here. Make sure you pick up both bars and slip stitch through like so. Okay, so this is your first round. So you have 12 trebles. So on this next round, we want to increase by another 12 stitches, which means we're going to work 2 trebles into every treble all the way around. So again, we're going to start with our 3 chain to count as your first treble, and you want to work 1 treble into the base of this 3 chain. So in here where you've done your slip knot and where that 3 chain comes up out of, you want to work a treble into that same space. Okay, so that's your first increase stitch that you've done, and then we need to work 2 stitches into each of these trebles all the way around. Okay, so this one here is your next stitch in here. I'm going to do 2 trebles in there. My wool is splitting, sorry. 1 and 2. So you can see the 2 stitches going into the same space there, and that's your increase stitch. Okay, so you're going to do that all the way around. 2 into every stitch. And it's a good idea to maybe stop and check each stitch that you've done just to make sure there's 2 in there, because it's very important that each row has the correct number of stitches. So if you make a mistake and that you don't have the correct number of stitches, then you'll have to rip it back and do it over again. So it's a good idea to just really pay attention on those first couple of goes as you're practicing this. It'll become easier as you practice. Now I'm nearly finished my round, so we come to the end here now. And we have our second row done. So you can see I have 2 stitches in every one all the way around. So I should have 24 trebles. So I'm just going to count them just to be sure, because it's easy to make mistakes on this one. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Perfect. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch again as in previous rows. This is going to be the same step all of the time on every row. So I like to just go into the center of the stitch. So 1, 2, 3 and in there, and you pull your yarn straight through, and it leaves this, there's no gap then, so it's a nice tight kind of connection there, and there's no space in it. So the next round, again, we need to increase in by 12 stitches. So we've got 24 stitches, so the next row we have to have 36 stitches. So to do this, we're going to increase in every second stitch. Now the first part of the round, you're going to do the same on every increase row. Okay, so the first part of the round is going to be 3 chain to count as your first treble, and a treble into the base of that 3 chain. That's going to be the same on every row, and this counts as your first increase stitch. Okay, so you can see it there. There's 2 stitches in the same space. That counts as your first increase stitch. So now you want to do 1 treble into the next stitch. Okay, and then you're going to do 2 trebles into this next stitch. So that's your next increase stitch. So on this round, all the way around, you're going to go 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, all the way around. So increase every second stitch. 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, and you do this all the way around. So we're increasing by 12 stitches again, and this keeps your circle nice and even. If you increase like this on an even number, that you should technically be able to keep going kind of as big as you want, and it should stay flat. If your circle at this stage, if you've only done a couple of rounds and your circle is already starting to curl around the edges or isn't holding its shape, then the chances are there's maybe something gone wrong. You might have an extra couple of stitches in there. So it's always good just to check, and for the first couple of times you're doing it, just go a little bit slower and make sure you have the right ones, because if you get to the end of the row and you haven't the right amount of stitches, you'll have to rip it back and start again. So you can see as I'm going along here now, we have 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So nearly at the end of the row there. You should always be ending the row then on your single stitch. So you do an increase and then 1 single in here. Okay, so again, there's your third row done, and we're going to join with our slip stitch again, same as before. 1, 2, 3 into the top of the third chain from the previous round. Join with a slip stitch. Okay, so you can see that there. On this last round, we're going to increase another 12 stitches. So in this round we'll be doing an increased stitch and then working 2 single trebles and then another increased stitch and then 2 single trebles and another increasing stitch. Okay, So on each round, as you're doing your increase stitch, you want to increase the number of single stitches that are between each increase, if that makes sense. So I'll show you now. We're going to do again our 3 chain to count as our first treble, and our treble into the base of that stitch. So that's our first increase stitch. So in the previous row we did an increase and then one single one and then another increase. So in this row we're doing an increase stitch and 2 single stitches. So 1 in here and 1 into the next one. Okay, and then you do your increase. Okay, then 1 in here, 1 in here, and then your increase. Okay, so 1 in here, 1 in here, and then your increase. So you do that all the way around to the end of the row, and this is the basis of your working in the round. You increase by however many stitches you start the circle with. So we've started with 12 stitches. So on each round we want to increase by 12. And we do that by increasing the number of single stitches that are in between your increases on each row. So we started off with 2 trebles into each stitch all the way around. The next row then was 1 single stitch in between your increases. The next round was 2 singles. That's the one we're working on at the moment, is 2 single stitches between your increases. The round after that will be 3 single stitches in between your increases. The next round after that will be 4. The next round after that will be 5, and so on and so on. So technically you should be able to continue on in this manner, increasing by 12 as you go. And as I said, the more you practice this, the easier it will become. There won't be as much kind of counting and checking involved. You'll kind of get used to doing it, and you'll be able to see from the previous round, you know, which stitches are coming next. So here we are coming to the end of the row, and I'm just about to do my increase stitch, and I should have 2 single stitches left over to do 1, 2. That's perfect. Okay, and again we're going to join 1, 2, 3 into the top of the 3 chain that we did on the previous round. So there's your, okay, it should be nice and flat. It's looking good. I'm just going to start the next round for you so you can see what I mean by the increases. Okay, so on this round now we should have 3 single stitches in between each increase. So we start with our 3 chain, treble into the base of that chain. Always be sure to work into this stitch next, even though it's a little bit, it kind of opens up at the end there. So, but still make sure that you work into that. So we do 1, 2, 3, and then our increase. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. See, 1, 2, 3, and then our increase. Okay, and you finish, do that all the way around. And that's it. That's how you work in the round with treble crochets.